Good evening, everyone. My name is Nolene Hammond-Jones. I'm going to start the session in 2 minutes. We're just finalising some details, and I will start the presentation in approximately 2 minutes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nolene Hammond-Jones. I am the International Career Consultant at the University of Manchester. Today's session is going to be looking at preparing for the China Careers Insight Week. Just to give you a little bit of insight into why we are our colleagues from the University of Warwick and ourselves have decided to run the annual China Fair, which usually runs in Manchester and Warwick, as a digital event. So I will talk through what we expect to happen, and if you have any questions, you can post those questions in the questions area, and we can get to them at the end of the session. So as you know, this event has gone from being an on-campus event to being a digital event running over the space of 2 weeks. We now have 500 attendees at the session. So if you're trying to get in, or you have a friend who's trying to get into the session, we are full. This session will be recorded though, and it will be available on the University of Manchester YouTube page, and the link to the recordings will be shared with all partner universities taking part this year. So if you're unable to attend, or a friend is unable to attend, please let them know that the session will be recorded and will be available online for them to view at a later time. So the China Careers Insight Week, as we said, is a digital approach to the issues that have arisen in the last few weeks, which have been awful. And we have decided that in order to enable our Chinese students to engage with employers who want to recruit back to mainland China, and also the odd opportunity in the UK, that we would facilitate this through online platforms, webinars, as well as making the vacancies available through our careers link at the University of Manchester, and your own career services will also have details of vacancies that the employers participating in this 2-week event will be offering. So the event, as I said, will be running from the 17th of February until the 28th of February. It'll happen during the week, Monday to Friday, so there will be no webinars at the weekends. They will only be during the week. It is being run by ourselves here at the University of Manchester and our partners Warwick. We also have webinars coming from Bath and Bristol universities, as well as Leeds will be having a number of webinars later in the month as well, which we will be sharing with our students from employers who are wanting to take part and engage. You will all be updated via email and online, so please be aware that if you haven't received an email yet with the information and links to the webinars, you will do, and not to worry. There will be, at the moment, we have approximately 20 employers, but this number is increasing every day. There will be information via the China Fair app, which I will talk through later, on how you can download this app and get up-to-date information, as well as a newsletter which we will be distributing. We also have an immigration solicitor from Farley Solicitors delivering a webinar for visa advice on the 24th of February at 1 p.m. So you will also get the link to register for that. So moving on to the next slide. This is just some of the employers who will be delivering presentations over the coming weeks. And they are hiring for a number of different areas. Please read the details that are included in the webinars, as some of the employers are looking for specific study or majors, such as engineering, and some will be looking for broader subject areas, including business and those that are not typically vocational roles. So do read the information carefully that the employers have provided us for each of the webinars, because they are very particular in the kinds of study areas they were recruiting from. The China Fair app that I mentioned earlier, this is an app that we use historically every year at the China Fair, which has been developed by the University of Warwick. This is a fantastic tool that is used by students during the fair, which would normally contain floor plans, upcoming talks, employer presentations, everything like that. Unfortunately, as we are not having an on-campus event either at Manchester or Warwick, it won't be used for this purpose, but it has been repurposed by Warwick, which is fantastic, to show up-to-date webinar schedule for all the employer webinars, as well as the opportunity for you to have a look at vacancies, information, news. So the details there, the actual app is called, just so you can see here, it's called the Career Fair Plus. So this is what you're looking for, is the Career Fair Plus app. And once you download the app, then you want to go into the organizational field and look for, or just type in Warwick. And then when you see Warwick and Manchester China Careers Insight Week, that's the event that you're looking for. So the information, and these slides will be shared as well, so the information is available here. But if you go into the App Store or the Apple Store and look for that, you will find the information. Moving on to the next slide. Let me just get rid of those marks. Why should you attend the China Careers Insight Week webinars? Well, as I said, we have a variety of different employers attending the sessions from a number of different sectors. Visas historically are difficult to get in the UK. Only a small proportion of international graduates do get sponsored on a Tier 2 visa. So it's a good move. It's a smart idea to have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. This could involve getting a job with an international organization who is based in mainland China, and then looking at developing an international career later on when you've developed a network, a careers portfolio, knowledge, insight, expertise in your chosen field. In addition to that, you will hear from a variety of employers who want to recruit our students. And by attending the webinars, this will help with your job application. You can mention on job applications that you have been able to attend these sessions, that you have learned information from the recruiters themselves. Finding out what employers are looking for from a range of companies, including national and international organizations. You get the opportunity to ask some fantastic questions, which you can get answers for online. And it also helps to build your awareness of the different types of sectors that are recruiting and what roles are on offer from the various different employers. Moving to the next slide. This is before attending the event. So it's fantastic that we've been able to get so many employers to engage with us on a digital platform. And we have done that. It's taken a lot of work to do that. And what I would encourage our students to do is, instead of attending a webinar, not knowing anything about the employer, asking questions that the employer may have already answered during the session, is that you research the employers. The schedule for all the webinars are coming up. The schedule will be available. It's on the China Fair app right now, so you can see that, and it will get updated daily, as well as the emails that you will receive from your institutions with a list of all the different schedule presentations. So you will find that you will have access to a multitude of employers attending the event, but do research these employers. So if you choose to go to, say, a talk by Hayer or a talk by TTK or EY, then please do research the employer thoroughly and have a look at their careers and recruitment pages, so that you take the opportunity in terms of the webinar to ask a question that isn't answered already on their website or isn't answered during the presentation. And it also demonstrates to the employer your motivation. It demonstrates to the employer that you're commercially aware, you've done your research on them, you're asking poignant questions, and it can help you stand out as well. And by doing this, it gives you a bit of a competitive edge, helps you decide which employers you want to reach, but also demonstrate your passion. And this can be accomplished through internet research, annual reports that are available on the organisation, various directories, depending on the type of organisation, through national trade, professional associations, journals, speaking with people who may be working in that area, such as alumni through the Manchester network at the university, where we have over 3,000 alumni who are happy to answer your questions and are based in numerous sectors and roles across the world, so not just in the UK. And as well, the local Chamber of Commerce can be a great source of information. So if you thoroughly research the employers before attending their webinars, it will give you an edge in terms of the questions you can ask, and the information you'll receive will help you then in your applications. So what do you need to know about applications? So this is the section where I'm just going to talk around CVs, networking, what you need to know. I will take questions at the end when I've finished talking about CVs. So if you have a CV question, wait to post that till I've finished talking about, because I may answer your question as I'm going through discussing CVs. So if you do have a question, I will take them in about 5-10 minutes. So the purpose of a CV is to get you an interview. And how will it do this? By giving the recruiter evidence that you have what they're looking for. So it demonstrates your personal qualities, your key skills, and your relevant experience on there, including your education. You need to convince an employer and make an impact, and this can be done by using action verbs on your CV to demonstrate the different skills, knowledge, and experiences that you've had through your work, through your study, through your societies, volunteering, part-time jobs. And to give you an example of this, when describing a role that you've had, and let's say you've set up an event for a society, you can use the term set up, but I would say at the start of each bullet point, describing your role, describing your experience, using action verbs such as founded, launched, introduced, gives a better insight into what you actually did, as opposed to I was responsible for, and we're reading halfway through the sentence before we really discover what you did. Employers typically will give you 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how busy they are, with your CV, some even less. So having very eye-catching action verbs at the start of a bullet point, under your education, under your work experience, volunteering, etc., will help to give an employer a better impression of you in a shorter period of time. Another example is, instead of saying a term like fixed something, you could use terms such as reorganized, resolved, transformed. Made better, you can use simplified, eliminated, improved. It just your use of action verbs does help. Also quantifying, being result orientated in your outcomes is also very helpful. Employers, figures draw the eye. So if you have done something, ran an event and raised £200, that is a figure, that is a skill that you've used, that demonstrates motivation, it demonstrates skills that employers want to see, and also being results orientated. So when I receive a CV from a student and they said, oh, I ran an event, my questions are why, who for, how did you do this, who did you engage? So ask those questions of yourself as if you didn't know who you were and what you did, and see if it's relevant. The employer is not going to know the ins and outs of your experiences unless you tell them. Now, there is a limit in the level of detail that you should give, but two lines for a bullet point to outline the context, the action you took, and the result can be quite impactful for your CV. And I'll demonstrate this as we go on. So also stressing the involvement you had, and not giving away that that level of work to somebody else. Avoiding terms such as we. The employer is not hiring the team that you worked with, they're potentially hiring you. So be aware of that when you are creating your CV. And then also using recent experiences is very important. So use recent experiences from all parts of your life. Everything that you do up until the point that you have 10 years experience in one field is relevant to an employer, because it demonstrates a variety of different skills that you've used in different scenarios and different roles that you have whilst at university. So just because it's not directly relevant, say doing a job in a restaurant is not directly relevant to engineering, you will have developed a number of skills and soft skills in that role that will help you in your career going forward. So dismissing that as not being directly relevant can put you at a bit of a disadvantage. Unless you've had prior work experience in a field that you're going for, all your experiences are relevant. So moving on to your education, it's academic and specialist knowledge that the employer needs to know. Not all employers have gone to university, and the level of course titles and complexity of course titles can confuse some employers as to what it is you're actually doing. So taking the time to look at your course, highlighting some information around your current course content, predicted or known results that you may have had, listing modules that may be relevant to that employer, especially if you're doing something on marketing and you're doing a marketing role, a marketing module as part of your course. Highlighting that in your CV can show the employer that you're studying a specific area that they're interested in, including soft skills and transferable skills, and also as well projects and competitions that you take part in as part of your program, or if the course is running a competition or you're doing it because it's come around from an employer. Do include these. Employers want to see that you know you can work well as part of a team. If you've developed anything as part of the project or the competition, reported on anything, presented your findings as part of the competition, these can all demonstrate to an employer a variety of skill sets. And I'm going to show you next just an example of how education should look on your CV. So obviously this is from a student from the University of Manchester. But this is relevant for all university students. You would list of all dates in the UK are listed on the left-hand side, and then you would have the institution and the course that you're doing. Put in there what your current results are and what you're expected to achieve if you're an undergraduate. If you're a postgraduate student, you can put in there, if only if it's good, your average mark. I wouldn't, if your average mark isn't fantastic, don't give an employer a reason not to hire you. So do not include it. Do not put information on your CV that may reflect negatively on you. Only include the good stuff. So there you can see that the student has included relevant modules for the role. So they're going for something potentially in business or marketing related. They've also included their final year research project title, which also achieved an award. And they've highlighted that's part of their degree program. They had 3 various study placements and how that, you know, benefited them. And this is something that you should, even if you're at master's level, you should be including as part of your CV. Additional information to include on there regarding your experience includes voluntary work activities, part-time jobs, internships, work experience, placements, if you've done any shadowing, if you've been a mentor or mentee. The universities run different programs, but they tend to all be similar in terms of their format around, I know at the University of Manchester, we have ambassador programs where students can be ambassadors. We also have peer mentoring schemes where you can mentor other students in different areas. So these all look really good on the CV. Attending events and networking opportunities as well. Who you know is as important as what you know. So getting to know individuals in terms of alumni, academics, fellow classmates can help you in your career going forward. And noting positions of responsibilities. So again, if you were part of a student society, group work, teams, if you were student rep, these are all relevant experiences that can demonstrate to an employer different skill sets. And I would say if you're struggling to put information on your CV, speak to your career service and they can really help you to draw out those experiences and help you to frame them effectively for an employer. So skills employers look for on your CV can include attention to detail. So if you're applying for roles in the UK, you need to use UK English and make sure your Word document is set to UK English. If you're finding that you're using the letter Z or Z a lot in your writing, that is American English. It is not British English. Z very rarely turns up in the British language. So do try and avoid using that. In addition to that, communication, employers want to know that you're good with people, you've got good time management. Having a part-time job and studying a degree shows that you can prioritize to an employer and have good time management. as well as organizational skills. Commercial awareness, I mentioned earlier. Research employers thoroughly. That's all that means. Commercial awareness is knowing who the employer is, who are their competitors, what sector do they operate in, are they doing anything new, innovative, have they got specific clients that they're renowned for. Just do your research on them, and that is your commercial awareness ticked off. If you can demonstrate leadership skills, leading a group in a group presentation, and any languages, as well as teamwork. So here are more, and a lot of these, you don't have to have had part-time jobs, placements, internships. A lot of these can be demonstrated through your educational experience. So again, problem solving, flexibility, customer service, being innovative or creative, and that could be if you like to program in your own time and you've become a member of a forum like GitHub and you've helped other people with programming problems. That in itself shows innovation and creativity. Presentation skills, and you can demonstrate that in your CV. Literacy skills and report writing. So these are the kinds of skills employers expect you to have. And remember, they're not expecting you to be able to go into the role and do everything as a trained professional. They will train you in the specifics of the role. They just want you to come with a skill set that they can help to build on and help you develop through your career. So how not to communicate to an employer what you have done. So this is just a brief example of somebody who works in a restaurant. And I see this more often. I see this most times. I would say 70% of CVs are presented in this way from students from everywhere in the world, where they will diminish their experience by being very vague, not explaining clearly what they did, assuming the employer will know what was involved in their role, and that means that the employer isn't really getting a clear view of what it is that the student is actually capable of doing or what they did. So this is just the example of what not to communicate. Being too vague, too simple, it just doesn't work. If I move on to how, and this is an actual example, how to move on to reframing this experience to demonstrate more clearly to an employer what it is that individual did for that role. I will show you now. There we go. So amazingly, those 4 bullet points have expanded, and it shows that it's not assuming the employer knows that you've worked as part of a team. Demonstrating by being, using quantifiable data, such as how many customers per evening they were serving. And also you could develop this further by saying help to train and support 10 new staff over a 6-month period. That in itself could be another bullet point if you wanted to put that in. Being able to help and train and support staff is a skill in itself. Used excellent customer service skills and attention to details to ensure orders were taken and delivered quickly and accurately, and the fact that they were awarded a customer service award as well. Worked flexibly as required between bar and restaurant to ensure high service standards were maintained at peak periods, and you could put in accordance with the restaurant's health and safety policy, again showing an employer that you can understand policies associated with that organization. Suggested improvements to layout of menus and drink cards to improve look and clarity, used creative and IT skills to make samples, demonstrating innovative and creative and communication skills in that bullet point alone. So how that, again going back, how that one very simple example here completely undermines that individual's hard work, experience and skills that they've developed as a result of that role. And how that can be, after a discussion with a careers consultant at their institution, can then be developed into something that really does draw out all their skills and experiences and demonstrates them effectively and articulates them effectively to an employer. And that's what we try and do with a CV. It's bad practice to assume an employer will know what you do as part of that job. Every role, even if it is being a waiter or waitress or working in a cafe or working as a volunteer, not every employer has done that role or been involved in the hospitality industry or been involved in the volunteering sector. So don't make assumptions that they will understand what it is that you're doing. Equally, some employers will utilize a system such as Turnitin, which most of you will use with your assignments, to search your document for keywords and key search terms that they've included in the job description. And if you don't address those or use the same language, your document will be discarded and you'll be rejected from the process. It can be as simple as an AI looking for certain words and terminology in a document. So do be careful to, when you're, and that's what we mean by tailoring your CV to each role. Understand the job description, read it, carefully assess it, look at what they're looking for and how can you address those skills and responsibilities that they're looking for in that job description. Okay. So a quick one, just to kind of sum up the CVs, and then I'll get to some questions. Hold your CV at arm's length. If you can't read it, it's too small. Okay, so edit ruthlessly. Don't use anything, size 8 font or below and using tiny margins. It just makes the document look cluttered. Line up the text in columns. This is attention to detail. If you have different indentations and it just doesn't look right, and please stop using tables and lines and colored boxes and pictures and everything else. We do not use any of that on CVs. Do not put a personal picture of yourself on your CV either. Keep the sentences to no more than 2 lines. Use bullet points and use one type of bullet point with black, please. Don't use colored bullet points or flowers or anything else that you think makes the document look pretty. It's a professional document. It's to be given to an employer as a professional document, as if you were submitting a professional report. So it needs to look professional. Tables and lines that separate sections just clutter a document. And don't use capitals. It's basically shouting at somebody. If you write in all capitals, you're shouting in the document. And use one font throughout. If you use various different fonts in your CV, again, it shows lack of attention to detail. Try and use a logical structure, clear sections and headings, and get the good stuff on the first page, because if you get the good stuff on the first page, an employer is going to want to read to the second page. If you're applying for roles in the US, only use 1 page anyway. But if you're applying for roles elsewhere and it's a 2-page CV you're submitting, make sure that you have at least your latest job at the bottom of the first page so that it leads an employer to want to read the second one. So I'm going to look and see if we have any questions at the moment. Bear with me. Around CVs, and then we can go from there. So I said at the very start, the PowerPoint will be, this session has been recorded, so it will be available online on the University of Manchester Career Service YouTube page, but we'll also share it through our partner universities. Let me see. May know whether should we prepare a CV cover letter in both Chinese and English? Yes. So if you're going to produce a CV and a covering letter, please do this in both English and Mandarin. Some of the recruiters, even for the companies based in China, may be UK based, they may be UK and not speak Mandarin. So be prepared to have different copies. If they ask you to send them as an email or they want to discuss further, then it's handy to have both copies in Mandarin and in English. I will say about a covering letter, if you are including a covering letter, which I've not covered in the slides, it is 1 A4 page in letter format with the title, and if a reference is available of the job that you're applying for, in bold. So it's dear sir or madam. Do not include just sir, because if it is a female recruiter, they won't be happy that you've assumed they're a male. So to play it safe, dear sir or madam. If you have a name but you're confused and not sure which is the first name and which is what we call in the West a surname, play it safe and use both names, dear such and such. For instance, I get called Dear Jones quite a lot. Jones is what is my surname. My first name, if you're talking to me, is Nolene. So if you're unsure, use the entire name, Dear Nolene Hammond Jones. I would rather that than someone say Dear Jones. And I know it can be confusing, so play it safe. If you're really worried and don't want to use the entire name, please just use Dear Sir or Madam. In addition to that, ensure that the reference and job title are in bold below that. It's no more than 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is what about the role or the organization really appeals to you. Are they doing something new, something innovative? Don't use this opportunity to say what you're going to get from the organization. Just talk about, demonstrate your commercial awareness, the research that you've done on the organization, and don't just use the About Us section on their website either. You need to delve a bit deeper than that. The second paragraph is what you're going to offer to the organization in terms of your skills, knowledge, and experience, and evidence it. Don't just say you're a great communicator. Anyone can do that. I want to know why. Give me an example of a time when you were a great communicator. And then the final paragraph is, I look forward to hearing from you, yours sincerely, and your name. Full name. Please do not use shortened words like BW for best wishes or BR for best regards. In addition to that, if you are going to apply online, which most of these employers are going to expect you to do, can you please have a professional email address? Use your full name at. Do not use your student email address because you will eventually lose access to that once you graduate. If you have an email address such as Monkey Bubbles, please remember to sign your name, because I will reply to the address Dear Monkey Bubbles. So make sure that you've got a professional email address with your name. If you want to include your English given name on your CV, do that after your actual name in brackets. And that's absolutely fine, but you don't have to do that. Use your name as on your passport, because these documents will help an employer, if they're a UK-based employer, to apply for a visa on your behalf. So they prefer to have your actual name on there and not your English given name. If you've got, and I have had this in the past where students have had weird and wonderful English given names, please don't use them, such as Hot Man Jerry. Think professionally at all times and only use professional emails and professional names. So that is the covering letter. I hope I've answered that question. And let's just see if I've got anything else that... So if I write all my experiences, will employees feel I'm not a good match? Because I'm less relevant. No, I mentioned about relevant. You're at graduate level. They're not expecting you to have 10 years of accountancy experience. So what they're looking for is the skills that you've developed as a result of your experiences rather than the experiences themselves. So they're not going to put you at a disadvantage. The more experiences you've had in terms of work, employment, volunteering, societies will give you a better advantage at application stage with an employer. And I mentioned about commercial awareness, how to demonstrate that in a covering letter and demonstrate it. It's not necessarily demonstrated in a CV, except to read the job description thoroughly. And if they ask for specific skill sets, address those skill sets if you can in your experience and evidence those skill sets in your experiences. So in terms of finding a job and timelines, so I would expect all students to be applying, if you're in your final year or master's level student, to be applying for jobs now. A lot of recruiters are hiring at the moment. So if it's a large international organization, be prepared that the recruitment timeline can be up to 6 months, possibly longer depending on the number of applicants they've received. If they're a smaller to medium-sized enterprise, that can be a lot shorter, as little as 5 to 6 weeks. So be prepared for that if you are applying. And also, as the larger the organization, the more steps there are in the recruitment process. So it can include things like an initial phone conversation, online application, psychometric testing, which includes behavioral tests, situational judgment tests, numeracy, logical tests, personality tests. In addition to that, they could ask you to do a short video interview, followed by a full or half-day assessment center, which would then lead into group interviews, one-to-one interviews. It really depends on the organization, how much they want to put into the recruitment process. And the bigger the organization is and the more applicants they have, the longer the recruitment process tends to be. So just be aware of that. Most employers that are coming through the webinars for the next 2 weeks are recruiting for a start at the end of the summer this year. So they're recruiting for this year. They're not recruiting for 2021, they're recruiting for 2020. So be aware of that. Some may have internship opportunities, and they may discuss them in the webinars as well. So you can do that. I would say if you have questions around your CV and how well written the CV is, I would always recommend that before sending it off to any employer, that you engage with your career service to ensure that it's up to the standard that we would expect of a graduate. So please do engage with your career service. That's what we're here for, in order to get help and advice on your CV. And also we can help answer and allay any fears that you may have about applying for roles and what employers expect of you. So do engage with the services at your universities. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next section. Now, this is relevant around engaging with employers and what you need to know. So engaging with the employer online, you are all representing the universities at this during this 2-week event. So please make sure that your questions are appropriate and professional at all times. And listen carefully to the webinar in full and make notes if need be. As I said, all webinars that are taking place in the next 2 weeks will be recorded and will be made available to all students. So if you've missed one or you have a class or it clashes with something else, it's absolutely fine. Do not email all staff asking, is it recorded? It will be recorded and made available, we assure you. But if you are going to attend, I said it earlier, research the employer thoroughly first so that you can prepare some questions. And I would recommend typing these questions into a Word document, which you might have learned after this evening session. It can take a bit of time to type the questions into the questions box. Prepare these questions that you might have in a Word document, and then when you're ready to ask them, you can copy and paste them into the questions area. I say ready to ask them because as we go through the webinars with the employers, they may answer the questions as we go along, so do pay attention. If they answer your question, do not ask it again at the end. Employers really don't like answering questions they've already answered. It just shows lack of attention to detail again and listening skills. So do listen and if needs be, copy and paste them into the questions area. Assess pre-prepared questions during the webinar. As I said, make sure you've got them. Do not make the questions too personal. If the question's about you and a specific situation and a specific scenario that is very specific to you, the webinar is not the place to ask that. That is something that you would maybe email, and most of the employers will provide their email details or contact details at the end of the webinar. So it's something that I would recommend holding off for the webinar and contact the employer directly to ask those questions. And check out the employer afterwards on the website, the University Careers Portal, to see if they've got any events coming up on campus as well. So a number of these organizations may have events happening on campus in the next couple of weeks where you'll actually get to meet a recruiter on campus. They'll have coffee mornings, they have pop-up stands, they have a variety of different things that they're doing. So do check your careers portals to see if there is anything happening on campus for you to participate in. The more that you can get involved with that employer, even if it's the UK branch, it's still showing that you're engaging with that employer and that brand. And you know, when we talk about networking, it's not about asking for a job, it's not about what they can do for you, and it's not about collecting as many business cards as possible. So hopefully these webinars may lead to more on-campus events. And as I said, taking part in on-campus events, if they do arise in the next few months, it's important to make a good impression. These webinars are the first step. And I'm going to now talk about the next step. So if you do apply online and get invited to an assessment centre or an event at their offices in the UK, or hopefully when things get better, maybe back in mainland China. It's about making a good impression. Networking is building relationships, and you do it on a daily basis with your colleagues at university, your peers, your housemates, the milkman. It's all about building those relationships and having those conversations. Benefits include, it's mutually beneficial. It's not just what they can do for you, but think about what you can do for them. It shows your interest. It offers the opportunity of a great insight, may give you an edge when, meeting someone from a specific organization in terms of inside knowledge, getting more in-depth information on the graduate recruitment process, maybe asking questions about a specific area such as risk management, and getting a really in-depth experience of what that involves on a day-to-day basis. And it can also help to unlock the hidden job market, so those jobs that aren't necessarily advertised openly by the organization online. So what does a network look like? So a network it can be simple as your friends, your university peers. People might not be in organizations right now to recruit you and help you on your course, but in 2 to 3 years, your peers could be in organizations that you want to work in. So maintaining that network and building that network from now is important. Family, friends of family, professional bodies, society memberships. If you're on a course where you have a student professional membership to a body such as the Chartered Institute of Marketing or Architecture, Royal Society of Architecture, then do use those networks as well, and become familiar with the types of events they hold, training opportunities, online events, online information sessions. These can all help to build your network, build your portfolio, your knowledge, and helps you to explore different opportunities. And online, it's, set up your online profile. LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to be able to do this. You don't want to be passive. I have this here because, people think online networking, it's passive. It's not a passive situation. It's something that you can be very proactive with. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to get involved in groups, to follow companies, to see what kind of organizations are hiring, what kind of vacancies there are at the moment. Become findable. Every university career service has information on LinkedIn and how to best make the use of LinkedIn and become findable on LinkedIn. So use the resources your university career service have provided you. Join relevant occupational groups and interact. Don't just join and sit there quietly and read what people post. Participate, get involved in conversations, build your visibility and your profile. Follow the employers that you are interested in, as some of them will have separate careers elements or pages that they post on regularly, and connect with friends and colleagues and acquaintances on there. Again, you're not going in asking for a job, you're going in to make connections, to ask for advice and guidance. The more similarities you have in terms of background, course of study, institution, the more likely they are to help you. So highlight those when you're reaching out in a message, and don't just connect with someone via your Apple iPhone or your Android or your tablet, because it'll just send a generic "I want to add you to my network" message, and they don't know you, they're not invested in you. You're just a random person who's asked to avail of their network, and people can be very closed with that. So always do it on a PC, laptop, where you can tailor that message, really reach out to them and engage with them. And you can do this with the employers and the webinars as well afterwards. Find them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is growing massively in areas like mainland China. So do start to engage on LinkedIn in the groups and connect with people that you meet through these events online and on campus. Just want to give you a quick, if you are at an event, and we do have events coming up on campus here as well as you will do in your own university. So do your research on the event. Know yourself, 30 seconds to 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and I'll talk you through how you can do that. Know what you want to achieve from a networking session, or if it's a meet the alumni session, or if it's an employer session, and dress and act for the job you want. Don't sit in a corner on your mobile, ignoring people. I've seen it where we've had networking situations. An alumni has traveled from London and they're sat here in Manchester and they've given up their evening, and a student is sat in a group reading their WeChat or Weibo messages. Don't do that. Give them your full attention. This, as I said at the beginning, who you know is as important as what you know. And don't turn up to events in jeans and black trainers. Black trainers look like black trainers. They don't look like shoes just because they're black. So wear shoes, look smart, look professional. Imagine you were going to the office. Don't wear anything that you wouldn't want to be seen in on a day-to-day basis with an employer. And give a firm handshake, smile, and good posture. Body language is very important. And I know this isn't relevant for the upcoming webinars because it will all be online, but hopefully this will, as I said, lead to more on-campus events where employers will proceed to the next steps with you. Moving on to the 2-minute introduction. So everybody gets asked this, and you may get asked this in a Skype interview. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Nobody likes answering that question. But what the employer is looking for is a brief introduction as to what you're currently studying, why you chose that, why this university, what you're doing in terms of extracurricular activities at university, such as societies, part-time jobs. Demonstrate how this is relevant to the organisation and what you know about them. Express why this has led you to be interested in the organisation, and then be able to relate your background and skills to what you know about what the employer is looking for. And again, that's knowing and reading the job description very carefully. If you want to apply for a job online, download the job description and save it as a PDF or as a Word document, because once that job closes, that job description will disappear. So always save it, because it's great to have to hand if you're getting a phone interview, video interview, just to remind yourself of the role and exactly what they're looking for. So this is just a brief example of how this, what we would call pitch, would look like. You can fill in the blanks. Again, these slides will be available after the session, and the session's being recorded. So it just gives an idea of who you are, what you're currently studying, what your master's is in, what appeals to you about the organization, demonstrating your commercial awareness, what you're interested in specifically about the company or the role. That you've enclosed your CV, or you've handed them or your application, or as per your CV, demonstrate your knowledge and experience, and why this would make you a good fit into the organization. So I wouldn't advise following this word for word. It's something you develop and make it sound like your own, but it's a start for something that you can use. Confidence barriers. So these are things I hear all the time regarding networking sessions. No one will want to talk to me. People are there to network. The whole purpose of networking events or opportunities to meet employers or alumni is to talk. So, you have more to offer than you think you do. And I don't know what I want to talk about. Well, that's simple. Be prepared. Be interested in what others are saying. Do your research and have some useful questions, and then you will know what to talk about. And people won't want to spend their precious time with me. Well, more often than not, they've given up their time because they've been where you are. They're human beings. They have family, they have friends, they've been graduates at university. They know how hard it can be and how competitive the graduate market is. So, sense the conversation. If you find that the conversation is slowing down or it's getting quieter, thank them and move on to the next person. Look at cues, be mindful of how people are. So how to network at events. People expect to be approached by strangers. I have a question here. How can we build relationships with people on LinkedIn just as a stranger? How can those people be willing to chat with a stranger? And it's because, as I said, when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, it's not about being a stranger. It is connecting with them with a personalized message to draw commonalities. So if they've studied at your university and they've studied the same program, hi, I'm such and such. I'm studying at the University of Manchester on the Planning and Environmental Management program. I see you did that yourself. I'm interested in connecting with you to get some advice and guidance on pursuing a career in this area. So you've demonstrated that you've got similarities or you've got something in common with them. And that's how you can make those connections online with individuals to help you in your career. If it's a recruiter or an employer that is taking part in the webinars, hi, I attended your webinar on such a date at, through the University of Manchester and Warwick events, or Bristol or Bath, depending on who it was who ran the event. It was a fantastic informative session. Would you mind becoming part of my network as I'm looking to develop a career in your sector? Something like that. Again, you're just making those connections with individuals and letting them know that you've either attended a session with them, or you've met them at a conference, or you met them at an event, or you've studied a similar program, or you've studied at the same institution. Draw those commonalities. People are more likely to help you. Approaching individuals and starting conversations. Hi, may I introduce myself? As I said, these are human beings. They're not, they're there to talk. They're there to be asked questions. Look for openings, listen to conversations, see how you can contribute. Don't be quiet. The feedback I get from a lot of employers in China is that students are returning to China and not being vocal enough with the employers, either at assessment centers or interview, about their motivation, why they've applied to this organization, why they feel they will be a good fit, what skills have they got, what strengths have they got. They're expecting you. Employers want you to be vocal. They want you to demonstrate your knowledge of them. They want to hear how you're going to add value to their organization. Conversation starters, and this works online as well. If you're going to ask a nice question, so if it's in person, have you traveled far today? If it's online, oh, have you had a really busy day? It's great to see you online. Have you been to an event like this before? What's attracted you to this profession? I'm really interested to learn more. I see, if you're face to face, I see from your name badge that you work for a company. Some online events allow an individual to share their work job title as well. So ask questions. People are prepared for it. Bad conversation starters, and this includes LinkedIn and all other interactions with employers and potential recruiters. Can you get me a job? No, never ask that question. People don't like staking their reputation on you, the organization, without knowing who you are or having some sort of investment with you. I want to work in your area, but I haven't researched it. What's it like? It just demonstrates lack of interest, lack of motivation, laziness, lack of attention to detail, lack of commercial awareness, just lack of everything basically. And you will be surprised how often questions like that are answered. My name is, I'm doing an MSc in this, me, 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 me. Not talking and not saying, hi, who are you? What do I see from your name badge, or I see from the event that you're experienced in X, Y, and Z, and how do you find the organization? Remember, it's a two-way conversation. Don't just talk about you. Do ask questions about them too. Okay. So my top tips on this one is show an interest in people, be genuine, remember people's names if possible, repeat them in conversation, and that will help you remember them for future. Listen. I know with webinars like today, they can be a little bit long, so sometimes you forget what somebody said. Make notes if you can do, and don't pretend to be someone you're not. Be yourself, because that's who you're going to be Monday to Friday, and that's who they're going to work with. So, people hire people they like, so do demonstrate that for them. Check out your university career service pages. Ours are here in international students. We have lots of information on there that you can see. It's open. Do go to your career service web pages. They will have a lot of information for you. Career services are great for guidance appointments, guides to help you research your options, directories, booklets, information talks, employer events, fairs. Most universities in one form or another offer mentoring, also advice on CVs and applications, and that normally includes applications to further education as well, not just jobs. most universities have facilities where you can practice psychometric testing as well before you do that, and what we call simulation interviews or mock interviews, where you can have a pretend interview either with an employer who's come on campus or a member of the careers team, and we can identify areas where you might need to improve. So those are services that are generally offered at most careers services. For our students here at the University of Manchester, we are located in University Place on Oxford Road. You can come in and see us, you can phone, you can go on the website. I won't spend too much time because I know we have other students from other universities on today, so our information is available online. So at this stage, I am now going to go to questions. I hope I've answered most of them for you. We'll see if we have any more today. So, is it possible for us to be recruited by the webinar or by asking questions? Possibly not, but it may be as a result of any follow-up questions or emails you send if asked by the recruiter. I know it's not as easy as if you were meeting the recruiter at a fair face-to-face where you can hand over your CV, make a good impression, ask questions, and that does happen at fairs on a face-to-face basis. But I do know the employers are keen to hear from our students. So there may be opportunities at the end of the webinars where the company will link you to a portal or somewhere where you can have a conversation. They may ask you to apply online, and a phone interview may result from submitting something online. So do be prepared if that does happen. I've answered the one on connecting online. Are postgraduate students able to apply for internship in the summer? In the UK, no, because your Tier 4 visa would not allow you to do that. Most internships are during the summer, aimed at second year undergraduate students for the summer between their second year and final year. Some will take on first year students as well, but that's because undergraduate students can work full-time during the summer on their Tier 4 visa. Postgraduate students, the summer is considered your term time, so unfortunately you would not be eligible to work full-time as part of an internship. There are possibilities back in mainland China. Some of the organizations may consider summer internships. So you could potentially, if you were looking at doing a summer internship in that capacity, that might be an option. Is it possible for us to, I answered that question about being recruited. Should we claim the work visa demand clearly on the CV? If you're applying for a role with a UK-based organisation, it's generally asked online through the application process if you require a visa to stay in the UK. I always say answer truthfully. If you do require a visa, which most of you may well do, then it will be asked through the application process. There's no need to put it on your CV. The app, let me see, the app needs us to type a code to enter into China Insight Week. So, I'm not aware of that. I'll find out what that code is and send that information. So we'll find out what that is and we will let you know. So vacancies and requirements for jobs besides the app will be located on your career service website, and we will be sending information to all university partners, which will then be sent on to the students in the next 2 days, information on vacancies and the webinar schedule. So you will get that, and please keep an eye on your emails. I answered about the autumn campus recruitment. Most of the recruiters will be recruiting for 2020. Some might recruit for 2021, but most for 2020. I would, as I said about grades, if your grade is good, mention it. If your grade is not so good, don't mention it. Don't give an employer a reason not to hire you. And do we need to create different CVs for different jobs? Yes, you do. One CV, an experienced recruiter will spot a generic CV online. So please, as I mentioned before, tailor your CV appropriately to each role that you're applying for. Will the format of the webinars be the same as this one where I can paste questions online? The platform we're using, as far as I'm aware, 2 different platforms. So we'll be using Warwick's webinars will be on Blackboard Collaborate, and that will be a similar interactive situation. So with the Warwick webinars, which will be made clear on the webinar schedule, there isn't a facility to pre-register and then be reminded by email. It's a case of join now. So you may need to put a reminder in your calendar of when those webinars, the Warwick-led webinars, will be, so that you can join them at the appropriate time and day that they will be held. But there probably will be a very similar situation where you will be copying and pasting into a questions area. So do still have those questions prepared in a Word style document so that you can be as efficient as possible, and that the recruiter isn't sitting there in silence for 5 minutes waiting for everybody to type their answer, their questions, because that has happened in the past. So do be prepared. CVs between UK and China are very similar in terms of format. As I said, it's just language. So, you know, you'll be in Mandarin and one will be in English, because most of the organizations that are operating with us are either international organizations that are used to various formatted CVs. But yes, I would have a Mandarin version and an English, UK English version. So I'm not good. That's a personal question. Do this career fair include some job? No, this is just mainland China. Some of the companies may refer to opportunities in Hong Kong. Very few companies will include the opportunity for students to work in a different country to where their home country is. So if you're looking at working in a different country to your own country, very few companies will offer that at graduate level. They tend to hire you into your home country, and you would work within your organization for 2 to 3 years, say, and then you would be able to transfer internationally within the organization. It just, from a cost perspective, it isn't worth the employer investing at graduate level, unless you have a lot of prior work experience, to hiring graduates into roles and then sponsoring visas and visa implications and everything else. So they tend to hire you into your home country office. You would work there, and then you would move internationally later on with the organization. Bristol are having events online, Bath are having events online. If you check Warwick, Leeds, Liverpool, Coventry, Birmingham, I'm trying to remember everyone, Aston, Sheffield, Lancaster, MMU, forgive me if I forgot anyone, Birmingham, Warwick, go check on your career service website. If you go on your career service portal, you will see all the company events that are happening on campus, all of the vacancies that are being advertised through your institution. They're all there to hand. Do engage with the career service. It is absolutely vital that you do engage with your career service. Most UK companies and Chinese companies will look at A levels, so you may have to include those A levels in your CV. If you're at master's level, you may get away with not including your A levels. So if your A level results weren't that great, you can include them at degree and master's level. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I would probably summarize it, but speak to your career service because they can really help you with that. Oh my goodness, and I've got a lot of emails. Let me see, a lot of questions, I should say. Don't recommend any CV models. If you're going to use something online that's going to generate you a CV, as I said before, an experienced recruiter will see a generic CV, so no. The University of Manchester on the website has a CV and LinkedIn guide that you can download. It's a PDF. Have a look at that, and there's an example CV inside of what employers expect. Again, I wouldn't copy it word for word. It gives an idea of the kind of format and different sections that you should have. Also has in the center of the document a great area for all the different action verbs you can use at the start of bullet points for CVs. So do have a look at that. I've answered those questions. We think your students. Okay. Do not add your photo to your CV. Please don't add your date of birth, your photo, your marital status, more than one address. You can include the link to your LinkedIn profile if you want to. Any identifiable data that may lead to discrimination, do not include on your CV. There are all the companies that we've spoken to so far are on the China Fair app, but it is being updated day to day. We've reached out to a lot of employers to turn this event digital. So we're still waiting on some responses. So do keep an eye on the China Fair app because it does update regularly. Let's just see. Do companies coming into China Insight offer the job opportunities or just give us? There are vacancies that they're offering at the same time. So a lot of these companies that are doing the webinars for us have a number of vacancies as well. So they're not just talking about the company. They have got vacancies to fill. We'll be able to see the employer in the presentation. Some will be having a webcam. So yes, you might be able to see some of the employers. It's up to them how they do that. A whole example of a good CV. Okay, let me see if I can. Let me see. So if I go to UOM Careers Service CV as a link, just so you know. This is the University of Manchester Career Service website. Writing a CV first steps. We have this guide here, CV and LinkedIn guide. If you click on the CV and LinkedIn guide, you can also watch that webinar as well, which will talk you through all the different CVs. This is this is the document I was talking about. So this has an example of a CV in it if you scroll down. So this shows you an example of a CV, this student, details, the layout, other positions, additional. Now, I will say do not include references now on your CVs because of GDPR. You just put references available on request. This one here is a different style of CV where they've included their LinkedIn profile on here. And then if we keep scrolling, the page that I was referencing is the active language list. So it's great ways of being able to, if you're struggling with how to describe your experience or how to evidence your experience, this is a great resource. So the search that I did was UOM or University of Manchester Career Service CV, and it'll bring you to the CV page so you can have a look at that. Your own career services will have an equivalent page, so do also refer to them because you will have expertise in your own career services that will be able to help. And I said before, don't talk about visas on your applications. If they have a question on the application says, do you require a visa? Answer yes. Other than that, do not include it in your CV and do not include it in your covering letter. So yes, I think I'm going to end up there because we've run 15 minutes over. Thank you for participating today. Really appreciate everybody being online. I hope I've answered your questions as best I can. We wish you the best of luck in the next 2 weeks. I hope that most of you will find some great employers to engage with, some fantastic opportunities. Remember, if you do your research on the company, you prepare your document, you see your career service, get feedback, get advice, attend the events, ask good questions, you're in a good position. Those are my top tips, okay? And I hope that you all do really well. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your support. I know it's a difficult time for everybody. It's been a horrible few weeks and we wish everyone to stay safe and well. And we're glad that we're able to bring you a digital format of the fair so that you are not in any way disadvantaged by everything. So have a good evening, stay safe, look after yourselves, and good luck in the coming weeks. Thank you. Bye-bye.